What's up, everyone? Chris Reeve here, drummer for the band Filter. Finally enjoying some downtime after a long year of touring and visiting family all around the world. And I've gone for a nice drive in the mountains here in Southern California, in Upland to be precise. It's gorgeous. And I'm going to put this interview together for you for Voodoo Queen Digital Magazine. Here we go. Question 1. What made you choose the path you are on right now compared to what your parents might have wanted you to do? Has that support always been there? Well, my parents were always super cool with anything that I wanted to do. They always encouraged me to follow my dreams and do whatever made me happy. And I think subconsciously they may have even had some influence over the music thing with me because my dad is a radio announcer back in Australia and my grandparents are touring musicians. They're singers, dancers, keyboardists, percussion, you name it. They toured the world and did it. And I think having that kind of upbringing definitely sort of pushed me in that direction subconsciously. But I always had the dream of, becoming something. I wanted to be everything from a baseball star when I was very little. And then, wanted to be a psychologist. And I geared up to do that in my senior years in high school. And then I saw Cirque du Soleil with my dad, actually. And I knew in that instant, 16 years old, that's what I want to do for the rest of my life. And the next day, much to my parents' dismay, I quit all my studies. I did the basics at high school just to get me through and graduate because I knew I was going to dedicate the rest of my life to playing music. And I did. And it definitely took a bit of adjustment for my family. But as soon as I saw that I could stand on my own 2 feet and pay the bills and have fun doing it, they were all cool with it. They always supported me. They've been there 100%. Question 2. With everything that you do from playing drums, writing music, recording, producing, and teaching music, is there one that connects to your heart the most? That's an awesome question. And for me, I'm a very emotional person. Like, I'm a crier at movies and nice things in life and stuff like that. So I've definitely had those really heartfelt moments in every aspect of what was just asked. So from writing music, if I write something really heavy to me, I'll have a deep connection with it. If I walk out on a stage in front of thousands of people, there's nothing quite like that feeling, like, seeing how happy they are to see you and that feeling of I've worked my whole life to be here. Especially for someone like myself from another country who's had to risk a lot and sacrifice a lot to be here to do it. It's a heavy moment. I think the biggest one for me would definitely be teaching. There's nothing quite like having that one-on-one connection with somebody and teaching them everything that they know about playing drums and music and living as a musician and being on stage and all that kind of thing, and then seeing them have success with it, seeing them have an emotional response to it. There's nothing like it. In fact, quick story, there was one time I was teaching this little guy back in Perth. He must have been 10 years old, teaching him to play his first rock song. He was playing AC/DC, and he was ready to perform it in front of people, and we called his parents in, and they come in and they sit down behind him so he can't see them, and he just starts playing along with the song and nails it, just destroys it. And I look over his shoulder and his parents are all welling up because they're just super proud. And he turns around and sees this and he just loses it in tears. And I see them losing it and I start losing it. And we're all just looking at each other laughing and crying because this little kid has just blown his parents' mind. And in turn, he's blown his mind, and it's blown my mind, and there's nothing like that. Question 3. What do you find is the biggest challenge in your creative process with anything you're involved in? The answer to that, I would say, is being a grown-up. In an industry where you need total mental, physical, and financial freedom to pour your heart and soul into a project, it is tricky to balance it with being an adult. You have to pay your bills. You've got to put fuel in your car. You have to upkeep your relationships. You got to pay your rent, all that kind of thing. So when you're told to sit there and write an album for someone, you have to be able to put all of that stuff aside and just think about your passions and what music is going to come out of you at the time. Question 4. You're very busy again in 2016 on a tour with Filter. Recently in an interview, Richard Patrick said, "You have been Filter's best drummer. How has that affected your journey?" Well, it was super humbling and super flattering to even be considered to join such a high-profile band. It was even more humbling to have someone like Rich, who has done so much and is so respected in the industry, have him say that. Especially considering some of his past drummers were my idols, like Josh Freese and Jeff Friedel. All those guys are incredible, and I really look up to them. And to be put on the same kind of echelon as them, in Richard's opinion, was really, really nice. It was really cool. And it has been a nice confidence booster out here, because it is scary, like moving countries, completely different industry, into the biggest pond with the biggest fish, coming in as a very small fish. And to get those kinds of props is very touching, and I'm very, very grateful. Question 5. You are very active on social media with your fans and with bands you're playing with. What is your thoughts about music industry and social media today? That's a really good question, and I think the answer will depend largely on how much sunlight we have left over there. So I'll try and make it quick. I think social media is a double-edged sword. On one hand, it's an amazing tool to connect with people. For artists to connect with fans, you can speak directly to them. You can get feedback from them about your music. You can give them exactly what they want. You can deliver their requests, that kind of thing. That was not possible in the past. It's also great for connecting with peers. Lots of people make themselves accessible now on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, and even contact forms on email on their website, that kind of thing. So if you ever need to get in touch with a peer that you otherwise don't have a connection with in your inner circle, you can do it now using social media. So it's amazing for that. It's also really cool for getting your music out there. Like when I first started in bands, when I was a young boy, it was really a big deal to get your music into a public forum. Like the first time I saw a band I was in CD in like a Target, for instance, blew my mind. I was like, oh my God, there's my music in a store. I am successful now. That kind of thing. Because it was really hard. Like you had to find a good distributor, someone who believed in you and that kind of thing, if you didn't have a record deal. Now it's literally like, pay this company $20 and we will release it everywhere on the world streaming. Or stick it on YouTube and it's free. That kind of thing. So it is awesome for getting yourself out there. Videos as well. If you want to put up a video of you playing, that stuff did not exist, 15 years ago. It was nowhere near as accessible. And now anyone has a shot to get noticed, that kind of thing. On the flip side, it is definitely taking a toll on the artists. Over the last few decades, music has definitely been improving as a medium more in favor of the consumer than of the artist. Like making it more easy to listen to. So from vinyl to cassette kind of thing. And then from cassette to CD, being able to skip tracks super quick and all that kind of thing. And releasing singles, and it's cheaper and all that sort of thing. And then making it more accessible. So MP3, all of a sudden, instead of taking 1 or 2 tapes out, so 30 songs, now I can take 65,000 songs on my little MP3 player. And then it went a step further, and now it's just live streaming. And now it's literally any song you can think of, you can get from the internet, YouTube, Spotify, any of those streaming programs, and listen to it instantly. So those days of, oh, my favorite band just released an album, but it's Saturday night, the shops aren't open tomorrow. I'm going to have to wait till Monday morning to go and line up outside the record store if they've even still got it in stock. Like that sort of passion and the willingness to just wait for that favorite music of yours is completely different now, because it's like, hey, have you heard such and such's new album? No? Okay. Bang, there it is. Now I've heard it. Am I going to buy it? Maybe. We'll see. So that kind of change has definitely taken a toll on artists, because it's reflected on royalties and stuff like that. So although it's easier to get your music out there, it is a little trickier to see any profits from it and propel it forwards for the next time you do an album, that kind of thing. Not impossible, just a lot harder than it used to be. Question 6. Being from Australia and recently coming to the US music scene for the first time, how has that experience for you so far? It has been eye-opening and very, very fulfilling. Coming out here was a life goal, and I dedicated everything to it. I went through 2 life savings to get here and get my visas and time it right with my life. And being able to finally do it and working with the people I get to work with and doing the tours and stuff like that is extremely fulfilling. It really makes all the sacrifice and everything worth it. It was cool. And it's very eye-opening, because it is a completely different scene in LA than it is to Perth, Australia, because everyone's here, so it's really cutthroat. It is tricky to get gigs. You have to really hustle. Whereas in Perth, it's relatively easy. If you can play, there's plenty of opportunities for everybody to have a shot and make something happen. Granted, in Australia, it is a little bit tougher to break through that ceiling and get into the American market. But, you know, anything's possible. So coming out here and seeing the American market, it's a lot bigger, a lot more expensive, and a lot busier and more cutthroat than I had imagined. But it's a hell of a ride, and it's great fun. Question 8. What has been the worst mishap you have had on stage? I've had them all. I've had the technical difficulties with computers or backing tracks failing, and it can really put a dent in a show. I've had like breakages, like my chair broke once, my drum throne actually caved in the back leg, and I fell backwards completely off the stage, and the band turned around to see what was going on, and I wasn't there. I just disappeared. That was a big one. I've had all kinds of injuries as well, like the old cracking your finger between the stick and the snare drum hoop is a big common one, and results in blood all over your drum kit. It's disgusting and painful. Done that a few times. The biggest one, though, happened this year, actually, with our tech, Kevin. He is an amazing dude. And here's the story. So it was our first gig of the American tour, and Kevin had run out onto the stage to do a guitar change, and it was really smoky, lots and lots of stage smoke everywhere. And Richard put his hand out to give Kevin the guitar, and Kevin missed. He just went straight through it, and the guitar went clang on the ground. So he had that kind of mishap. Then as he was running back behind Guitar World, he trips over the fog machine and smashes his knee on the ground right underneath my far right crash cymbal. So while he's nursing that, I haven't seen this, I've got my head the other way, I do this move where I hit the crash cymbal and go through it. It's kind of theatrical, and I put as much might as I could into this one particular hit, And that's when I felt it. I felt the stick connect with bone. And I had hit Kevin square in the face all the way across here. And he just went down. He just hit the ground. And my heart sank instantly. And he's on the ground like this, just holding his face. And I'm sitting there playing still. I'm like, dude, I'm so sorry. So sorry. And he's not moving. And eventually he sort of gets up, doesn't even look at me, walks around behind Guitar World. And I look back and he's standing on Guitar World now like this, hands on his face. And I'm still staring at him going, man, I'm so sorry. And he finally looks at me. I'm like, yes. And he's like, don't worry about it. It's cool. It's cool. And he just sort of got on with the show, albeit a little bit dazed. And I saw him after the show, and he has this huge like exclamation mark all the way across here, welted out, dark red, that he had for about a week. And I just felt terrible. That was definitely my worst mishap thus far. Question 9. Out of all the places you have been on tour, has there been a particular food you have fallen in love with? I have always had a thing for Mexican food. Even in Australia, soon as we had Mexican restaurants come out, I was there every day. In fact, the few months before I left Australia, I had a burrito every day. We used to get these cards that had, get your 10th burrito free. And I went through at least 10 cards in about 3 months. That's like 100 burritos. So during my visa process, both times, the first time I came out to America and this time when I had to renew, I went and did it in Mexico City. And the food out there blows my mind. It's very, very different to the Mexican food I'm used to in Australia. It's kind of similar to the food out here in LA, but the real deal in Mexico City was amazing. Side note, you have to watch what you eat out there, because I can't remember what it's called. There's a special name for it. We have something similar in Bali, next to Australia, called Bali belly. And basically your stomach just can't handle the bacteria that's in the water over there. And I am always super careful when I go to Mexico to not drink the water and not eat the salads and that kind of thing. And this one time, I went to this restaurant one time, and I had amazing tacos, the best tacos I've had in my life. It's right near the American Embassy on Paseo de la Reforma in Mexico City. And I wish I could remember what the restaurant was called. Actually, probably better I don't remember, because it was so good I went there a second time and got terrible food poisoning. So much so that I wound up on antibiotics for a couple of weeks. And it was an extremely unpleasant experience. Great food, but it definitely lingered with me for a couple of weeks. Question 10. What inspires you as a musician, and what are some words of wisdom to give other up-and-coming musicians? All right, we're racing the sun now. I've got my little car light on here. I get inspired by really weird things, mostly percussive things, because I'm a drummer. So anytime I'm filling my car up with petrol, I'm listening to the pump, and it's going that kind of thing. And I'm like counting time signatures and stuff like that, and I'll inevitably start jamming with it. The coolest story I have about that is this one time I was in Perth, and I think I was working on a video project, and I heard this cricket outside, and we started jamming together. I flat out had a jam with a cricket for about 20 minutes. And he was holding this really steady polyrhythmic 3/2 kind of rhythm, and I started soloing over it. And it sounded really cool, so I hit record on my camera. I have this somewhere. And I jammed with him for a little while with me soloing, and then he started doing all this really weird stuff. So I started holding a solid rhythm, and he soloed. And I'm like, I can't believe this. And it was all relatively in time as well. And then he calmed down and started doing his 3/2 again. And then I soloed again. And I traded backwards and forwards with this cricket for about 20 minutes. So it's things like that. It's literally nature and TV and all that kind of thing. It's not just music and musicians that'll inspire me. It's anything. Um, it can be art as well. You know, you can get inspired by looking at a painting, that kind of thing. Um, Wherever I see it, that's my inspiration. My inspiration for, well, my words of wisdom, I should say, for up and coming musicians, I would say just get out there. Put your heart on the line. If you want to make it your career, just do it. Take the risk. Take the leap of faith. It's dangerous and it's scary, but it won't fall in your lap. You have to go out and chase it. So use the internet to your advantage, like we were talking about earlier. Use social media. Connect with your peers. Connect with your idols. That kind of thing. And put yourself in places where more work is going to come to you. LA, New York, Nashville, London, those kinds of things. If you want to go and try that kind of market, if you just want to make some cash in the industry, if you just want to express yourself in the industry, that kind of thing, just use the internet. Or stay in your town and be that go-to guy, or girl, be that person that is called by the studio to go and do their artist's EP. Be that person that gets called for every single cover band fill-in gig every weekend, making hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. Just figure out what you want to do and just go after it. Question 11. What is there still to come in 2016 for Chris Reeve? Well, today we're out of sunlight. For tomorrow, I have a lot of things in the pipeline. Got some self-development going on. I'm studying with some of my total idols, picking their brains and working on my own technique and that kind of thing. We've also got my own clinic tour coming up later in the year, hopefully to branch out into an international one. And I have a new Q drum kit coming very soon, mahogany and a brass snare drum. Very, very nice. As well as some other filter dates and some other cool things along the way. Stay in touch. We'll see you guys soon. Yo, so in my haste to beat the sun and make it out to my plans tonight, which are actually here at the Viper Room, we did our rooftop scene of the Take Me to Heaven video for Filter right there, and the ladder going up it is terrifying. But in my rush to get here, I actually forgot a question. Question number 7, my favorite one in the whole interview, which was, if you hadn't been born in this century, when and where would you have liked to have lived? And I love this question. My answer is a little different in that it's not the usual just year 10,000 or dinosaurs or the peak of the music industry or whatever. I'd love to be born on the cusp of a technological advance. So I'd love to be around this age, 30-ish, and something amazing happens, like they invent teleportation devices for humans, or interstellar travel, or they cure all diseases or something like that. And I think being this age, you can kind of appreciate how life was different when you were a kid, when you were growing up, early 20s, and then all of a sudden everything changes and it's a completely different world, completely different outlook, and you can appreciate it a lot more, I think. That would be my answer. So, I gotta get out of here. You guys take care. Bye-bye.